Okay, so that's what we have here. So here I'll go to get Bootstrap. So that's the official website for Bootstrap. So when I go to get Bootstrap, and I'm sharing the stream URL, so you always please check if it is still running. So this is Bootstrap. So basically Bootstrap is a CSS framework. And what a framework is it's more like when you have already made food. Does that make sense? And when you say already made food or ready to eat food, it's not necessarily that you will get to the house sometimes and start eating it. You might still need to, do a couple of additional things like maybe put it in your desired plate or get the spoon or something like. But you just need to do some extra little work in order for you to, be able to eat the food. At least you need to put it on the table and use your mouth in your hand to lift your spoon to your mouth so that you can be able to have a meal. But what frameworks are basically, we have already written CSS syntax, having specific style or rule set attached to them that you can use on the fly in your own project without having to write sophisticated CSS. You just need to know what class names are available you know from on that framework, and you use those class names, then you get the very same output that this framework provides when they were writing those rule sets. So I know that's a little bit wordy, and I'm not even sure if I communicated that properly, but let's just see how it works. So let me go to the home page. So remember I told you about CDN sometime back, right?
Yes, sir.
So I said CDN serves as, serves as, it stands for a content delivery network. And what that means is this is just another random file on the internet, or another random CSS file per se in this case. But it is not, written on your computer locally, but instead it is stored somewhere on the internet, on a server somewhere. And then if you can get the URL to that server, you can import that same file into your project, and you can begin to use it in your project. So Bootstrap, is served over a CDN, and when you copy that CDN, basically it is served over a CDN. When you copy that CDN and go to your JavaScript, your HTML, and you go to the head, tag of your HTML, and you put that CDN there. And if you go back to our project, you will see that our font has changed. I don't know if you will notice that, but our font actually did change from what it was before. Because initially, see what we had initially. And just take a look at that. So you can see what we had initially. But when we brought in sorry, let me just comment this out. This is what we had initially. You can see what we had initially. Hello. But the moment I brought in this Bootstrap CDN, you see what is happening? Our font automatically is changed. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And that's because if we click on this link like this, and we follow it down in our browser, and I open this, you are going to realize that it's actually a massive CSS file that is on that, what's it called, on that that link points to, the link points to a massive CSS file. And this is an example of what they call a minified file. That means it has been compressed, so you can actually see, you see it in such a way so that it consumes less memory space, and that it takes lesser compile time. That's why you minify it. And that's why you see bootstrap.min.css. So I think if we don't do .min.css and we just go to Bootstrap, you see that you actually have a more sophisticated, more like the regular kind of CSS. Does that make sense? Can you see that? Hello. Can you
Yeah, I
guys
can
see
see that.
that? You can see we have navbar.expand, off canvas, and all those stuff. You have different kind of class names here. You have media queries and so on. And these are all inside of the Bootstrap, CSS file. Can you see that? But instead of writing this CSS in your project like we normally do, styles.css or index.css, what you are doing is that you are delivering, or you are retrieving this particular CSS file over a content delivery network. And all you just need to know what class names have been made available, and you will use those class names inside of your HTML, and you are going to have take advantage of everything that has been written here, depending on what you need. Does that make sense for everyone? Please, if it makes sense, let me know. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, makes sense for everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so let me just get rid of everything we have inside of here, including the JavaScript file. Hello? So including the JavaScript file. So what I'm going to do here, we have nothing here now. And it is very important for you to understand that Bootstrap was built with a mobile first approach, and that means when you are using Bootstrap, they've already coded the media query. You don't have to worry about responsiveness. Bootstrap by itself is responsive. And when you say mobile first approach, means the CSS was coded first of all for mobile screens before desktop screens. Does that make sense? So I have an H1 here, and my H1 I'm going to say hello, hello from Bootstrap. So you can see we'll have that here. And I think we have another CSS that is actually working here. And I think this is this styles.css. So I think let me just go on, instead of opening this, let me just go on and comment out this our CSS. And that's what it was bringing me to the middle. So let me comment that out. So we have just our plain Bootstrap inside of our project and nothing else. This is the only CSS that exists in this project now. So when I come down here, and let me just change this to introduction to Bootstrap. So when I come here, I can just come and apply a class name. And when I apply a class name, I need to understand what class names or what utilities are available for H1 on Bootstrap. So when you come to getbootstrap.com, you want to come to their documentation page. And the documentation page is basically everywhere, where you have everything, things written about everything you need to know about a particular resource that you are going to be using. So in this case, the resource we are using is, the Bootstrap CSS. So we want to know what and what is available for H1 in our Bootstrap or from Bootstrap. So we have different stuffs here. We have customization, we have the introduction, and all of these are various things that we probably might look at later. But this is just more like a generic, an intro class. So we have breakpoint for media queries, in Z index, CSS grid, and so on. So when we keep coming down, and it is important to let you also know that there are different versions of Bootstrap. So what we are using now is version 2 and 5.2. We've had older versions of Bootstrap. Like for some years ago, you always see them say things like Bootstrap, this is coming, maybe a new version of Bootstrap. So we have components here, and then we also have helpers. We have utilities like background, we have borders, colors, and so on. So we have also have for text. So the text one is what we want to look at now. So you can see here we have text start, align start text, blah blah blah. We have text, wrapping, when you check if an entire a text should be on a line or it should jump to the next line if there's no more space for it. We also have utility for text break. We have text transform utilities. We have font size utilities. So we have different ones. We have line height utilities. We have font family utility. So these are all the stuffs we have. So we just go from the top, bottom, and keep checking one after the other what we can do with these utilities or these class names. So for text alignment, so we have this Bootstrap. Remember, this is a block element, right? So we can do text alignment. So we have text at text center, text end. So let's come to our H1 and do text start, which nothing will happen. And you can see we have getting suggestions, because VS Code actually helps you with that. So text start doesn't do anything because it aligns it to the beginning of the line. So when I do text center, see what happens. You see it takes it to the center. And when I come here and inspect this element, you will see that we have a class named text center. And when I come down to check, inspect the CSS for that, you will see that we have text center and there's a text align center on it. Remember, we don't have any CSS written in this code. Can you guys understand that? We have not written any single line of CSS, but you can see that we have a class named text center and it has a style attached to it. And if I comment out this, you will see that style is gone. And you can see most of those classes are coming with the important flag. So that means in order for you to override it, you also have to add the important flag, or at least use a selector as a higher precedence. So we have all of this now, and then in Bootstrap we also have some predefined, we have some predefined stuffs for our header classes. So we have a margin and so on already set here. So these are all coming from Bootstrap. So we also have font size. You can see that is also applicable. So all these stuffs come from Bootstrap. So that's that for text alignment. So we could also do text end, which will align it to the end. And you can see that that has a text align of right. Can you see that, guys? So let's do text align center for now. So let's also see
Yeah.
what else we have
Yes.
available. Let's see what else we have available. So we also have text SM start. I'm getting a feedback from someone. Okay. Text SM start, and when you see SM, MD, LG, XL, this all talks about screen sizes. So XL actually talks about extra, when the viewport is extra large. LG talks about when the viewport is large, that is normal desktop size screens. When you talk about MD, medium, talks about tabs, tablets and so on. Then SM talks about your mobile phones. And let's just experiment with all of that using our inbuilt, what's it called? So let's do this text SM start. By default our text is aligned to the center here. So when we make it smaller, sorry, so you can see that our media query is actually working. When we do text SM start, when I comment this out, you can see it actually goes back to it goes back to the center. So you can see the media query saying when the minimum width is 576 pixels, what happens? It should align the text with that. You guys remember media query, right? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So Bootstrap makes all of that available for you. So you could set, you could align your text based on the screen size. So you could say on larger screens you want to align to the left, on smaller screens you want to align to the right, and so on. Does that make sense? So this one
Yes,
now,
sir.
yeah, this for a smaller screen size. So we could say text MD start, or okay, so we could say text LG or MD. Let's say text MD center. And the moment you start using media query, you will need to worry about a couple of other things. So you can see we have text MD start. So let's do this one for center.
You,
So you will see that at different breakpoints we will have different alignment for our text. So you can see, okay, you can see that when the text, when we have text SM start, when the minimum width is 576, it aligns to the start. When I expand it a little bit, it goes back to the center. When I make it so small, you see it goes back to the center as well. Does that make sense? You can see that the alignment
Yes.
is changing based on the screen size. Does that make sense?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could use Bootstrap for responsive designs as such. So let's go back here, and we also have LG and XL, so which is the same principle, and they tell you what exactly it does, small or wider, and it talks about the viewport sizes basically. So you can take a look at that at your own time, and I'll just drop the link on the group so you can follow through with it. Make sense?
Yes, sir. Please, I need to accept my other device.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. So we have text wrapping. So text wrapping is basically you asking, your text to come to a new line. Let's say in a case where you have, so let's use a paragraph for that. And let me do Lauren. And so let's, and I don't even think I need this much kind of text. So let me add the class first of all. So let me bring this down. So you can see the text actually wraps. I don't know if you've designed before when you see a situation where your paragraph just begins to go out of your screen. It doesn't come to the next line. So that's what text wrap does for you. So we have we also have no wrap. So when we do no wrap, we have something like this. And let me bring this back. So you can see this one keeps going on a straight line. It doesn't come down. Can you see that? See, it keeps going on a straight line. It doesn't wrap. To wrap means it will have to come to the next line when it doesn't have enough space to be displayed. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So text wrap
Yes,
makes
sir.
it come to the next line. And when you inspect the CSS for the paragraph, you will see that that style is applied. So it says text wrap, white space, normal, that's what makes it, wrap, basically. So, and those are not really the exciting ones. So we also have text break, you know, where it can actually, break a word, break text so that, it displays if that's your preference as far as displaying text is concerned. So transformation, we have capitalized, lowercase, uppercase. So let's try uppercase because that will be more obvious. So when I come here and say text, and let me just leave all of these stuff so that maybe it can be useful for you, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So that can be used for you. So let me just do class and let me add that capital letter. So you see that this one will be in capital letters. Can you see that? So you see I'm not actually writing any CSS, but all of these things are actually getting applied because we are using Bootstrap. Does that make sense? So let's use
Yes,
font size 1, which is, and there are different magnitudes of font sizes. So let me just copy this line down again and apply that font size 1 so we can see what that looks like. So once I apply that, you will see that we have that paragraph with a very big, with very big text. So that's all coming from Bootstrap. Does that make sense? Hello. Okay, so we also have font weight. So we have
yes, sir.
font weight.
Sir, please, what you want to like? You want to do
Eh?
the CSS?
Eh?
Just want to make
What's that?
hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I said what you want to adjust the CSS a little bit
Okay.
to suit what you want.
And if you want to adjust the CSS, I said that before. You could bring in your own CSS, like we have a CSS here, or you could even decide to put inline CSS. You could write any kind of CSS you want. You could use block level, inline, or whatsoever. But make sure that you don't take Bootstrap class names to go and write another rule set for it in your CSS. If you want to modify a CSS, your own, you want to add custom CSS to an element, you should make sure you add your own custom class name. Don't use Bootstrap class names. So whenever you are using Bootstrap in a project, there are class names you cannot use again if those words are already being used as Bootstrap classes. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Hello. So for here, I can say okay. I can say I
Thank you.
want to
Okay,
add background.
I want to ask a question.
Okay, go on.
Okay, for I don't know whether you call it Bootstrap code or whatever. Is it for every Bootstrap code or whatever you write down, it automatically like replicate it in CSS?
It doesn't replicate it. The thing is that the moment you bring in this CDN, the Bootstrap CSS already exists in your project. Does that make sense? So you can now have access to every class name that has been declared inside of
Okay.
this Bootstrap file, which is what we looked at when we came here. So all of these class names, if I come here and just do a find in my browser and I do text break, you will see that it exists here. You can see that text center exists here, text break exists. You can see that all of those class names actually exist. And if you check these class names against what we inspected in our browser, you see that it's actually the same. So these are all rule set the same way you wrote your own CSS, just that these ones have already been written and they've been beautified, so you could leverage them and do nice things with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's just let me do the font weight. So let's say
Okay.
let's do a next line and let's do font weight, and let's do font weight bold. And font weight bold, we make that font bolder. You can see it's now a bold text. So I could do bolder. Do we have bolder even? So we have bolder, yes. So bolder makes it bolder. Bold just makes it bold. Just like the regular CSS, and bold class you have. So that's that about that. So let's leave the text region. So we have line height. You could also set font family, right? You could set monospace, a monospace font family. So which is also available. So let's set this now. So you could see that will have a different look. You can see the kind of look that this font has now. Can you see that? So all of these things are available and they actually look so nice.
Yes, sir.
They look so nice. You could also have text muted. So this is going to give you that faint looking kind of text that isn't too. And let me make this smaller because we need more room. So we could have another text and say, okay, text muted, and this one is going to be muted, and it's going to be very light. It's going to be, can you see it's very light? It's not black. So you could use that to show aside information. So all of these are, so you have strike through as well. You have text decoration, underline, text decoration. So all of these are available, and I can't actually exhaust them. So let's go on to look at other things, right? And we have other things like vertical align, float, flex, and so on. So flex is one thing that you might really want to use when you are using Bootstrap because it's very useful. So just like when you write your own flexbox in CSS, you could actually have your own, flexbox. And let me just put, flexbox. And here the first portion we did was, text. So for flexbox, you could actually have a div and put the flex. So that gives you the display of flex. It's coming from here. I didn't make it up. So it's a part of what Bootstrap offers. So you also have padding classes. So you have P1 to P6, I suppose. So if you have this, you could also have, another div inside of it. And then that div, let's say we want to say first. Is that how you spell first today? First box. So I would say second. And I would say third. Of course, you guys know what flexboxes are at this point, right? So you can see they are all side by side. And if you remember very well, you remember that divs are block level elements. They don't go side by side. I hope you remember that. And let me just mess up these class names. You will see that they will be on top of each other. Can you see that? So you can see that the moment I added dflex, it automatically made it a flexbox. So I could do things like justify content between, and it does justify content space between for them. Does that make sense, guys? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also have BG classes, background classes. So we have BG, we have BG danger, which will give you a red color on your background. We have BG warning, which will give you that yellowish color. We have BG primary, yeah. And I know all of these things from my head because I've been using it for years. We also have BG info, yeah. So there are different color classes, and I will also show you that. But I'm just showing you what's available. So this is for flex boxes. So we have D flex, D inline flex, SM flex. So that is if you want your flex on different screen sizes, or maybe you want flex box on a particular screen size. I don't want flexbox on another screen size, so all of those kind of stuff. So that's that about flexbox. Is somebody saying something?
She said her network is bad.
She said her network is bad. Okay, she said okay. I thought she was talking to someone else. Precious, sorry. The class is being recorded. I hope it has not stopped recording. Okay, it is still recording. Okay, it has actually stopped recording since 4 minutes. So, but that's fine. I think I'm recording locally, so
Sure.
I'll upload it. Remind me to upload it, please. So we have a couple of other things, and these
Okay.
are yes. So these are just the utility classes. So you can see we have opacity, we have we have classes that handle margin and padding and so on. You get the point. So we also have classes for sizing. So there are lots of things. So we could set, for this stuff here, we have classes for width. So you could say W, which is width utility class. You could say W50, and it would make this flex box 50% of the total width. Does that make sense? You could say 75, or is it, yes, 75, and it would make it 75% of the width. You could say 25, makes it 25%. So there are so many things that you have available inside of Bootstrap. So it's something that you actually have to learn if you want to start using it. So we have a lot of other things like components. So these components are very useful as well. So let's take a look at buttons now. So let me do buttons. And of course, we are going to do a project based on Bootstrap, so it will help us know how to actually use it in an actual project. But I'm just showing you what is available here, and I hope it is helpful for you guys. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Yes. So for
Yeah.
for button classes, did I reactivate? So you would have sorry. So let's just do button, and I'll say button. And for your button classes, you have to use this base btn class. That's how Bootstrap identifies that you are requesting for the button class. You get the point? So you do btn, and
Okay.
let me just come here and let me just do a regular button without any class attached to it. And I say click me. So you can see we have a button here, the regular ugly, ugly, what's it called? And let me just put this in a div just to show you, the utility class for margin. So I would put it in a div and I will give a class to that div. And let me just put the button inside of the div, and I'll give a class to that div, and that class is going to be my, I suppose my5. So my is margin along the y-axis. So we have different margins. We have margin 1, which is smaller. We have 2, we have 3. You can see it keeps becoming bigger as I increase the can you see that? So this is for margin across the vertical axis. We have mx, which is margin along the horizontal axis. So but if I don't specify y or x, it's just going to give margin across all sizes, top, left, bottom, and right. Does that make sense? So but here we just need
Yes, sir.
margin.
Yes.
Then we also have padding classes. So I could say py or p 3, and it gives a padding around that box. Does that make sense?
Wonderful.
Eh? So we
Yes,
could
sir.
also do border, border 3, and it gives a border around that element. It doesn't give a border around element. So let's look at the border class quickly. I think that would give a border, but obviously didn't give a border. So another thing you could do, so we have border classes too. So you could specify different border, types and border. So we have border. Okay, I think you need a base border class. I think that's what we're missing. Okay, so you can see we have it now. So you could also specify the color of the border. So always in Bootstrap, your color will always run from primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light, dark, white. Does that make sense? So those are the ranges of color. So if we say border success is green. Border danger is red. Border warning is yellow. Border info is like light blue. Border primary is blue, I guess. Yeah. So those are the stuffs you have available. So let's just put our buttons inside of a nice border. So let me bring the button to the next line, because the emphasis for here is on button, not borders. Or maybe let me just leave that as a border, section. So you understand that better. Right? So let's come down to the next line and say buttons, and then for our buttons, so let's do btn. I said there's a base btn class, right? So we have btn, then btn primary gives you this blue color. So we could also do button.btn secondary, and that gives you a secondary button. And then we could also do button.btn. btn is always the base class. .btn warning, and then let's say warning. That gives you that yellow. Did I spell that correctly? Okay, btn dash warning, not btn warning. So we could also have button.btn info. Yeah. Right? So we could also have button.btn.btn, and these are all color classes, really. So we have different color codes for each button. So btn info, which one do we have again? Btn success. So that's the green one. I think that's the last one I'll show you for this particular button section. So you can see we have different nice looking buttons, and we didn't have to write a single line of css. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then we
So how
also
do we
have
get to manipulate? How do we get to manipulate the colors if we don't exactly want to follow? How do
their own.
we
Yeah, so
modify
once
it?
you just say button.btn like this, so you could go and, okay, let me do a customized one, for example. So let's say button.btn, right? And that's what we got. And I will say this one is custom. I can see it's custom. So you could actually decide to, and let me just use inline styling, but you could have, import your own css and apply your own style. And I can say background color. Can you see that?
Okay.
And I could say color, that is the color of the text inside of it should be white. Not white. So you can see that now. So you could customize. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So we can't exhaust all of these
Yes,
things.
sir.
So we have
Yes, sir.
we have things like accordion, and these are complex stuffs. We also have navbar. So let me just show you the navbar, and I know you'll be excited about that one. So let me just copy the entire code here because I can't write it out. So I will just come up here and let me just put, because navbar, it makes sense that the navbar is at the top. Not, you can't put the navbar at the bottom. It's like wearing your cap on your kneecap. So we have this, and when I come here, you can see we have a navigation bar. So you can see that navigation bar is here now, and when I expand, you can see we have an actual navigation bar on top of our page, which you could customize and add whatever you want. But you can see when I go to a smaller screen, it shows me this normal menu icon that you normally have. But sadly, it is not working. But when I come here, see, it is working here. Do you know why this is not working? Hello? Do you know why the one we have here is not working? Meanwhile, the one they have here is working.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the reason why it is not working is because, when we're going to copy the CDN for Bootstrap, we had two links to copy. There was a CS copy file, and there was a JS link. So we need to bring in the JS, because remember, we can't have interactivity on our web page without JavaScript, right? So when
Yes,
I put in that, so that should work just fine, and I hope it works, because Bootstrap can be funny sometimes. So you can see it works now. So you could customize all of these stuffs, and of course you have to understand how HTML and CSS work before you can think of customizing these stuffs. So for example, now where we have our navbar, we know this is it. So I could say Bootstrap course, right? You can see we've customized our navbar, and you could put an image, you could put whatever you want. Does that make sense? So here in
Yes,
our
sir.
drop down link, we also have another drop down in the drop down, and all of those are courtesy of JavaScript. You could also add anything here and you can cancel. So these are all functional. So let me also go back to the Bootstrap documentation page and bring in other elements. Like we have and I'm trying to bring in some navs. So we also have different kind of that one is a navigation bar. We have other smaller kind of navs that you could implement in your project, not that massive one. So we have, and all you just need to do is just to know how to work it, and you add it. So we have progress bar, like when you see all those download bar, downloading now, that progress bar you have. So you could just copy this, and these are all components, and that's why you see we are not really adding the classes. They are components that you can just copy and paste in your code and modify for your purpose. Does that make sense? So I want to show you a nice one, and that's the sleek carousel. And that's this one that has a slide. I'm sure you must have seen it on several web pages. You could use it for images and so on. Hello.
Yes,
So
sir.
you could use it. So all you just need to do is what? You just need to copy the component from your Bootstrap. What's it called? So you can see if we copy this one, of course we need to provide our own images. So let me say, let me come down here and say component, because all of these ones are basically utilities. So the buttons, sorry, the component actually started from when we started talking about buttons. So so here okay, they call this stuff carousel or carousel. So we have this, but you see that it won't look so great on our own project because we don't actually have any images. So let me go to pixabay.com and grab some images. And at this point I'm actually very tired. I think this is the last one we do tonight. Jesus. But I hope it has been a productive class for you guys, and I hope you've learned a lot.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me just copy different images. Oh, I was supposed to copy image address. I was copying the image link. So let's see what it is. The network is so terrible. So it's trying to bring in those images. So basically that's what the slick slider does. And you could, so that's just one of the many components you have. So let me see. So you see we have it now. Can you see that? So you could configure it whichever way you want. And these images are too big, so I think I need to make them smaller. So let me set the width. No.
Sir, please, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
There is one carousel I saw in one website one day, and I think I was trying to search about it. The carousel is those image when it's the user that have to click on the next button before it's going to flip to the next image, right? There is one carousel that I saw, it switched by himself after for some seconds.
Yeah, you could
And I've been checking
configure it.
I saw it in the website though.
You could configure it whichever way you want.
What is this, sir?
You could configure it. You could configure it whichever way you want. So it's not a one-way stuff. So there you could autoplay it, and you could, I think it comes in from here. You could decide to set, to autoplay it, or for it to be able to play by itself. So I think all of these options come into. So, but most times, most of these things require a lot of customization still. So you might still need to, do some additional tweaking. But ultimately, that's how you bring in the components and get to use them in your project. So they actually added a width of 100%. So let me put this inside of So there's something else called a container class, which is basically a class that has a margin around it. So I think that would be nicer for the carousel. So it can be in the center of the page because it just looks very big and it's kind of way off the screen. So I think I'll continue on showing you some additional elements and how to customize them further, because we still have a lot more, a whole lot of other elements. Like, okay, so I think this is the one with the buttons. So I think that's the one we need. So let me add that here. And instead I have to go and get new images again. So you can see the buttons now. Hello.
Yes, sir.
So that's the button. So you could add the button. So you will just know which particular one has what you're looking for. So this one has these 3 dots under it now that you could also click. So I think those 3 dots are here. Are they here? No. I think somehow you have to pass it in. So I think it will be somewhere here. So once you just know which one you want to select, you have to pick that particular one from the list of stuffs. Then like this one now fades out and fades in. So there are different options that you can pick from. So we have drop down, pagination, placeholders, popovers, and so on. We also have modals like dialog boxes, so you can see this. So all of these are available. So I think that's pretty much it for today, guys. I'm so tired, so I think we'll continue on Friday. Do you have any questions at this point?